We are doing the mountain bike edition of our racing on the jungle circuit in Watopia. The other special thing about today's race is we have a special guest here joining me in the studio, but also remotely is Mr. Steve Fleck. Steve, how are you doing today?
I am doing well, Andrew. Thanks for having me aboard. This is my first time doing any kind of Zwift commentary, so I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you today on this call for race number 5 of the OCA Indoor Road Race Series.
Well, it looks like we are just a few minutes away from the start of the first wave of the day, which is, of course, the A race. We are looking like about 1 minute and 20 seconds to go. So, Steve, why don't you let us know who will be participating in our race in the A category?
Yeah, some of the top riders to look out for: Andrew Charles Bergeron, Bruce Bird, Greg Beaulieu, Eric Deere, Jason Henry, Nick D, Tony Jacques, Kaj Johnson, Edward Ouellet, Matthew Owens, Laurent Reeser, Martin Rupes, Brett Stoppa, and Connor White are the listed riders. They're listed as Elite 1 and 2 in the Zwift A. It gets a little confusing talking about the categories because the OCA has their categories, Elite 1 and 2, etc., that people familiar with licensed category racing are familiar with. But Zwift has their own categories based on watts per kilogram. So all of these riders are going to be racing in the Zwift A category, about to start, as you had said, in a moment's time.
So there we go. We actually have about 30 seconds there, Steve. So we're going to switch on over to the image of our riders there. Here we go. We've got the OCA Race Series start banner giving us the final countdown here. Looking like we're coming up to 10 seconds for the start of our A racers. All right, gentlemen, start your engines. Get those pedals moving. Get that wattage up and enjoy your race. 45.8 kilometers for our A racers today. And now 2 minutes to go for our B racers. Now let me go back to the studio here. And Steve, let us know about our B race today.
Yeah, the B race, again, they're going in 2 minutes' time. As you said, top riders to look out for: Yanni Beck, Greg Cuff, Ryan Froese, Brenton Henry, Philip Major, Graham Page, Matt Randall, Lucas Roorda, and David Simpson. They're all listed in the Elite 3 men, and they'll be going with the Master 2 men: Michael Bobo, Derek D'Angelo, James Eaton, Paul Yoakum, Brian Kingston, Justin Keeney, Enrico Magnani, Andrew McLeod, David Moyer, David Ord, Donovan Paulett, Roy Thompson, Rob Visser, and Hussein Wabi. Leading the point series for the Elite 1-2 men is Kaj Johnson. And then for the Master 1 men, it's Brad Parsons. And Enrico Magnani, we're going to see him going in the Zwift B race. He is leading the Master 2 men's point category at the conclusion of 4 races. This is race number 5 that is underway for our first wave, the A wave right now, and the B coming up shortly.
Very good. Less than a minute to go before the B racers are off. Unfortunately, we can't give you the visual of the start of the B race. We only have eyes on the A race at the moment, so we'll certainly give everyone a countdown and then continue introducing our riders. Almost 30 seconds to go now for the start of the Bs. All right, we're coming up on the big countdown. All right, B racers, get ready. 10 seconds to go for your start. Get that wattage up. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the Bs are off. 2 minutes to go for the C racers. And who do we have racing with us today?
Notable C riders that we'll be seeing today in the C category based on watts per kilogram: James Allison, Isaac Dobos, Conan Shing, Adam Smart, Ken Wad. Those are the Elite 4 men. And then the Master 3 men are grouped in with them: Fred Bergeron, Denise Boulard, Giuseppe Ciprano, Luke Foucher, Matthew Gallagher, Glenn Gunderman, Mike Jacques, Albert Klenkenink, Alex Martins, Roberto Madaglia, Odu Moten, Batista Moreda, Michael Orr, Tony Peters, Chuck Taylor, William Trischuk, Jesse Sang, and Steve Wall. I think this is our largest category, Andrew.
Yes, it certainly is. Also, the women's group is fairly large as well. I think those numbers are comparative. We're coming up to about a minute to go for the C's. Let's just quickly check in with our A group. They are powering through the lead-in, which is about 6.3 kilometers, and the road is getting fairly dusty and dirty at this point, and you can see chosen to use mountain bikes instead of road bikes for the start. We may even see some riders do a switch where they stop and get onto a mountain bike as the circuit starts. The A riders are now crossing the gorge and on the bridge, so they should be hitting the jungle circuit in about 3 kilometers. So let's check back. We now have about 30 seconds to go for the start of the C race. So we'll give them a proper countdown and then introduce our D racers, which are, of course, our youth riders and our beginner sportif. So coming up now to about 10 seconds to go. So C racers, start your engines, get those pedals moving, get that wattage up for a nice flying start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. The C racers are off. 2 minutes to go for the start of our D race. And once again, Mr. Fleck, would you mind introducing our riders today in the D group?
Before I get to that, Andrew, just a reminder to those perhaps new and unfamiliar with Zwift racing, these starts are absolutely critical. The first 2 or 3 minutes of riding, almost going at max power, the riders are to get positioning to remain with the pack. So a little bit different than real conditions on the road. Zwift D category will be Ryan Mack, Jared Rowerda, Antoine Bergeron, Lucas Gates, Sagan Gates, Yaden McMullen, Austin Rankel, Lillian Pelosa, Joshua Cooper, and Enrique Martin, as that will be the D wave. They'll be going off, as you mentioned, Andrew, now under 2 minutes to go, probably closer to 1 minute before they get going.
Yeah, that's right. I'm looking at the times here. I may be slightly off on the countdowns. My time is now 5 minutes into the A race, and I'm looking over at the women's race, who now have a 2:40 countdown. So I might be a few seconds off, that's for sure. So apologies to anyone if we are throwing you off, but hopefully you are still getting a good start into the race. So on my clock, there's 45 seconds left to go before the start of the D race, but it looks like there's only 24 seconds left, so we'll go with that clock. That's probably more accurate than the one I've got here. And we've got 2 more groups to start, with the Ds coming up now in about 10 seconds. So everyone, start your engines, 10 to go. Get that wattage up. Spin those legs in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. The start of the Ds are now on the course into the 6.3 kilometer lead-in, heading towards the infamous jungle circuit. 1 group left, and of course, this is the Zwift E group, our women today. Steve, would you please introduce our racers?
Yes, 26 women in total in the E category. Andrew, Ariane Arsenault, Eva and Iris Gabriele, Nome Godero, Franny Jewett, Yasmin Purdon, Evelyn Sifton, Dylan Baker, Holly Clark, Gabby Eady, Lucy Hempstead, Isabella Catherine, Rosa Phillip, Chantel Thompson, Paulina Allen, Catherine Cuff, Kelly Cullen, Sarah Elliott, Mahiro Gonzalez Najira, Deirdre Maloney, Shauna Novak, Karen Patterson, Nancy Schmeller, Hannah Spence, Anna Tikulitz, and Angela Webster. Those are your women. Big category for the women. Multiple categories racing together here, Andrew. Senior Elite 1, 2, Masters, etc., all in one category for the women in the E category.
Yes, it certainly is nice seeing the turnout in the women's field today. Also, a big shout out to our Quebecois riders. I see quite a few Dynamique de Contrecoeur riders here joining us from Quebec. Even though this is an Ontario-based series, we certainly welcome our provincial cousins to the east to come and join us and participate as we're one big happy family here in Canada. 30 seconds to go to the start of the final wave of the day, our elite and master women. So get ready to go, and then we're going to resume our coverage of the rest of the groups shortly. So if we can have all of our women off their trainers and on to the bikes to start spinning up. We now have 10 seconds to go. All right, ladies, get that wattage up. You're about to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and they're off. The final group is now on the course. And with that, let's check in with our A riders and see how far they have come in the 8 minutes that it took to cover the course. All right, we are looking at our A group right now, and they are 6.6 kilometers into the course, so it looks like they've made it onto the jungle circuit. They are currently in the tunnel section under the, I guess, the cave section of the jungle circuit, which has been nicely fitted out with a some sort of bridge that allows you to cross the water portion of this thing. Looking at the group right now, trying to find our leader here. Looks like we've got, just going to move down our list and count how many riders are in this group here. Okay, it looks like we have 25 riders that are still in the main group of our A riders. There are 33 riders participating in the race today. A few of them are not part of the OCA group, as we've mentioned before on this stream. Oh, here they go, and they are now joining the turning on to the main part of the circuit here at 7.3K. They're out of the tunnel. As I said, typically these are Ontario races, but sometimes we have riders join us from other parts of the world because the Zwift races are public. We have not restricted these to anyone, so we will see some riders. You can see a Brazilian flag being shown above one of the riders right now. Quite a few riders on mountain bikes. I'm looking in the screen right now, and I can see still a few of the bullhorn bar handles, but quite a few riders are doing that standard put your arms out and ride on the mountain bar straights. So at this point, there's not a lot of action going into the race, but it is certainly turning into a mountain bike race. I've yet to actually see this course myself, but it'd be interesting to see what kind of features that they do that are typical in mountain bike racing, which of course, Steve, you've had a chance to see before. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, it's one of the most scenic courses in Watopia, Andrew, from what I have seen. It's not that challenging, but as you had mentioned, the choice of bike is critical. If you can believe it or not, they have coded and programmed the resistance in the Zwift functionality to optimize mountain bike tires under the lower pressure. So that's why you're seeing on your screen racing now in the A group, most of the top riders opting for a mountain bike. It's the loop is all one giant climb up to a peak and then a big descent down to the bottom, and then they essentially repeat that loop multiple times. So it's a slow upgrade, slightly undulating upgrade to the top of the jungle, and then a long gradual descent back down, and they repeat that loop once again.
Yes, and it looks like they are coming up to that climb as the percentage grade is slowly increasing now from 3 to 4%. You can see on the overworld map that we are approaching the switchback section, so you can expect to see some attacks here, I expect, and some of those wattage numbers to go up. The race was separating a little bit there as riders were trying to shed off some of their competition in the back, but they're all together now and moving into that climbing section.
That's right. Some things that you see in Zwift racing, Andrew, are not dissimilar to what you see in real road racing on the road, groups forming up. And as you can see right now, we do have a lead group of maybe about 15 plus riders who have formed up at the front. No one wants to take a breakaway, probably a little bit silly to make a solo move this early in the race. Although some riders, I'm sure, will be wanting to take advantage of this climbing section to break away and put some distance and time on the other riders. One thing that I've noticed in following and watching the Zwift racing is a 3 or 4 second gap. Doesn't seem like much, but it is almost impossible to make that back up once you've been dropped off the back of a group. You have to turn yourself completely inside and out to get back with that group and on terms with them.
Yep, that's true. And looking at our screen right now, it looks like we do actually have a small break forming of about 4 riders that have about 5 seconds on the main pack, who doesn't seem to be interested in chasing them down right now. most of the riders are with us. We've got Martin Roops from X-Speed United, Kai Johnson from CCF, and Connor White from Hamilton United, helping out this break with a few other riders. There's an American rider in there, and another Canadian who doesn't seem to be part of our list. But it looks like the pack didn't want to let that powerful group get away, as they have bridged that gap and come back together. But in the process, you can see in the map that quite a few riders have dropped off the back of this pack and are struggling to get back on. So our initial group on lap 1 has certainly dropped a little bit now. If I just move down to the bottom of the pack, it looks like there's now only 12 riders in our lead group. So we went quickly from 25 to 12 riders in the A's.
This climb up on this side of the jungle loop, Andrew, it's deceptive. It keeps undulating all the way up. They're on a little downhill section. It sort of bobs and weaves, lots of turns, and constantly changing. It is never flat. It's either up or down a couple of percentage points, and that can sap the energy of riders' legs as they start to fatigue.
No, absolutely, Steve. Let's switch on over, change gears, if you will, on over to our B race as I try to pull up the view here from the Bs, and it looks like my companion app once again is acting glitchy, so we may just have to do this manually again. Going down the list looking for the lead B rider here. Here we go. I think I found it. And here is our B group. They are now 8.8 kilometers, which means they are on the loop right now, and they are heading in to that climbing section that we just started looking at with our A group. Currently, right now, E. Magnani from M2M Movati Stages is in the lead and has not moved from that position, so it looks like there isn't a lot of frothiness happening yet in the group. Looking at the map, it is still fairly put together with a few riders who have fallen off the back. But we'll see if the B riders can do the same thing that our A riders did by shedding half of their pack through this section.
Well, if you're a stronger rider, this is where you want to attack and either get away or string the field out and get rid of some of the lower ranking or less powerful riders. And Enrico Magnani certainly doing that right now. No surprise, he is currently sitting in first place in the Master 2 men's points category after 4 races in the OCA Indoor Road Racing Series here on Zwift. So big move, trying to string things out by the rider Enrico Magnani from the Movati Stages racing team. And Andrew, as you can see, pretty much everyone at the front of the race opting for the mountain bike configuration for this loop, the jungle loop. It is complete dirt and gravel roads. The suspension bridge is made out of wood, but for the most part, it is all gravel, all road, and pretty much all the favorites opting for the mountain bike setup.
Like I said earlier, I was unable to look at this course on my own to see what the features are, but I really hope that there are some of those typical features you do see in mountain bike racing, like rock gardens or other such obstacles that really test the skill of the rider. Even though there's no steering or handling, it certainly would add to the effect of the virtual world riding. Hopefully in the future, these platforms will be able to incorporate a little bit more of that skill part of the bike racing as opposed to just the raw power that you're delivering from the trainer to make things a bit more interesting. Oh, looks like we just had somebody stop there, probably from the A group. We ran through them. If that was a real race, that would have ended in carnage. But of course, in the virtual world, everyone is safe as houses on their bike.
Well, sorry to disappoint you, Andrew, but it is mostly roads. There's no real technical sort of sections on this loop. My wife raced one of the semi-professional races that was held on this same loop a few weeks ago. So I've seen this in racing action, and it's pretty much like this. The surface, the virtual surfaces you're looking at, it would be typical for a gravel road that you would see anywhere in Ontario or elsewhere in North America.
Well, I'm sure it'll still be exciting racing, Steve, especially with that component we talked about earlier where as of October 2019, Zwift had made a change in the physics of this world where certain roadways would react better to tire choice, like we mentioned earlier. So you can see many of the riders now on mountain bikes and choosing to get that real low rolling resistance from the wide mountain bike tire to speed ahead of any of their competitors who are still riding on their standard road bikes. We're looking at the main group of Bs right now, and you can still see at least a few Bullhorns and one Tron bike going through this area. I can imagine if those Tron bikes were real, I certainly wouldn't want to be putting them through the beating that you might get from a gravel road like this. And it looks like Magnani is taking off a little bit by himself in the front, and it looks like it's being joined by another rider. He is trying to lose the group. I don't know if that's going to be the wise move this early in the race, but he certainly does have the power to do something like that.
Well, they are just across that suspension bridge moments ago, Andrew, and that is where Magnani decided to lay things down a little bit. If you're on certain kinds of the trainers, I know the really high-end trainers like the Tax Neo trainer, you can actually feel the gravel or the cobblestones as you go over them. They've programmed it in cooperation with Zwift into the programming for the Tax Neo trainer that you can actually feel those vibrations coming through in the trainer for that full-on authentic experience riding in the virtual Watopia Zwift world.
That's certainly interesting. I've actually never had a chance to ride on one of these types of trainers, tending to prefer the dumb style of trainer, as it were, with just a fluid or a mag resistance on the back. Do you know how that kind of effect is achieved? Like, what does it do? Do you know?
I have no idea how they actually do it, but they're even working on a steering now. That's sort of the next level that my understanding that both Zwift in cooperation with some of the trainer companies are working on to fine tune the training, because as you can imagine, you're looking at these courses right now as it is. Steering isn't really a skill set that's tested at all, but that'll be the next level. But I know in the e-car racing, for example, the Formula One e-car racing, steering, the vehicle that the e-racers are using is worked into the software and the back end of the system, and I can see that possibly happening with the virtual e-racing on bikes pretty soon as well. Maybe a next year feature that Zwift is working on.
Yeah, that certainly would be exciting and would lend a lot more credence to the sport as a sub-discipline. And it looks like we have our first leaderboard coming up here, the Jungle Loop. Let's take a quick look at that in full zoom here. So it looks like Kai Johnson, CCF, took that loop in 11 minutes 33.4. So he is the current leader on that one. Connor White in third. And looks like we've got Martin Roops in seventh there. And one of our Techie Kids riders in eighth. Bruce Bird in ninth. And everyone is still within a full second of each other. And looking at this leaderboard, there are still 12 riders altogether in the main pack of our eighth group, as we are still watching the Bees on camera.
That's right, Andrew. Good group still at the front. This is still anyone's race, but another thing that you often see that's somewhat similar to racing, real racing on the road, is these races become a race of attrition over time. People form up in these groups, but then gradually riders are shed off of the back, and the group is winnowed down to the true strongest, who will battle it out right to the finish line.
All right, Steve. Sorry.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, looks like we've been sitting on our Bs for a little while, so why don't we head on down and take a look at our C group and see where they are right now. I've just switched over to our points leader in the Masters group, Batista Moreta, who is currently sitting at second overall. Looks like he has a riding partner with him, Jay Allison. So we've got the leader in our Master 3 group, along with James Allison. I don't have the points in front of me, Steve. If you have them there, let us know what he's doing in points. But what I think are our two top leaders on a solo breakaway, and it looks like they've got approximately 15 seconds on their closest competitor, Connor Shing from Morning Glory.
Yes, indeed. In the Elite 3 men's points category, Graham Page is leading. Yanni Beck is in third, and Brenton Henry. Yanni Beck is in second, and Brenton Henry is in third. Page has 75 points, and it's close between Beck and Henry at 68 and 60, respectively.
So I've just zoomed in here on our, I guess, secondary chase pack. Based on the map and the number of riders, it looks like the C race got really exciting. Maybe we should have been watching them instead of the Bs for the last 5 minutes. So we have our two riders, Merida and Allison, off the front by about 15 seconds. And then there's another group of 4 riders that include Dr. T, that's William Trisha, Connor Shing, Adam Smart, and Ian Dobos. And then there's another group that I can't quite make out on the map here. Let's see if we can take a look. So they're about still 10 to 15 seconds behind our lead group. And then there are a solo rider about 37 seconds back, another rider about a minute and a half back, another rider 2:10. So the C race has certainly shattered here on the jungle circuit.
Yeah, early pressure with those 4 riders off of the front, Andrew, has completely blown up the C race. We got dribs and drabs of groups of 3 and 4 spread out over the course of the climb as they start to head up to the summit now.
A beautiful view here of the overhead of the course. Sometimes when we get into these treed areas, we don't get to see much of the racing, but it is certainly a good way to see some of the sights here in the beautiful virtual world of Watopia. We're still currently looking at our C group right now with our chase group of 4 being led out by Dr. T, Adam Smart, Ian Dobos, and Connor Shing. All right.
And they've just come down a little bit of a downhill section. As I mentioned earlier, Andrew, this loop, although it is more or less uphill all the way to the summit, midway through the loop, and then downhill all the way on the other side of the loop, it is constantly going up and down, little dips and up and down. And this really does sap the energy of the legs. There is no real time to relax at all when you're under pressure and going as hard as you can. It was interesting, the comments of one of the top Pro Tour riders in the world, his first time racing on Zwift about a month and a half ago. He said it was just like a giant ramp test, which is essentially you just keep ratcheting up the resistance and until you blow up.
So, Steve, while we try to find our D group here, have you heard anything about the other big race that's happening in Canada online with our youth racers?
Sorry, say again, Andrew?
Have you heard anything about the other big race that's happening in Canada, sponsored by Saskatchewan Cycling and Cycling Canada, the race for youth?
I have not heard anything about that. Learning about it from you for the first time
there
right now, live.
So while we're looking for our youth riders, let me tell you a bit about it. Saskatchewan Cycling has taken the initiative, much like Ontario Cycling, to do an online virtual race. And it is every Sunday for, I think it's 4 weeks. They're doing a point series as well. It's on a different platform than Zwift. It's on the RGT platform. But they had their first race last Sunday, and it was fairly successful. A lot of riders from across the country took part in it, so hopefully they end up having a good series. And I think a few of our riders here in the D group have participated in that as well, so they certainly get a double-header weekend as they're doing it.
Well, Andrew, you and I talked about this the other day, and this is one thing more high-level that I've talked to about other higher-level officials and admin people in cycling, is this has been a giant experiment, all of this Zwift and other virtual platform racing through the the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's become so popular and it's gone so well that for Canada anyways, it might become a great alternative and option for people to race and ride, all winter long, like in next winter, for example. I mean, we literally can't get together and race in the wintertime in Canada, and this alternative platform, this virtual platform racing could become a legitimate sort of option for cycling associations, clubs, etc., to have races, competitions, and events in the wintertime.
Well, so that would certainly be a thing, having this turn into a new discipline in cycling. And you're right, with the country that we have, with the weather and the summer being as short as it is, and the distance in this country, it certainly would be an appropriate fit for us to be able to enable riders from across the country to meet virtually every week or so and participate in these races. So turning back to our event here, we have our D riders, and on screen we've got Lucas Gertz, one of our U15 men participating in the race right now, and he's currently sitting second overall in the field of 34 riders. It looks like he is with a group of 4 at this point, and now has moved into first place. So good on you, young Mr. Gertz, one of our top U15 riders, certainly showing you how it's done as they approach the overhead banner, and I think that means they are completing lap number 1. So they'll be heading into their final lap shortly, receiving the virtual bell in less than 200 meters.
Interesting that a number of the D riders, and this is the Sportif and the youth men's category, Andrew, they've opted for the road bikes. Some of them going all the way on the road bikes or the gravel bikes.
Oh, and there we go. There is a lap board on the right side of the screen, so riders are aware now that they've got 1 lap to go. So the finish loop that you'll be looking for is that fairly large Mayan or Aztec-looking overhead. That will be the finish line. So it looks like riders have a fairly straight and flat lead up to the finish. There's a bit of a bend. You're sort of doing almost a very wide 180 coming into the finish. So I expect riders to be winding up their sprint certainly just after they come out of the downhill switchbacks and going for it within about 500 meters to go.
That's right. That finishes, it comes up really quickly because you're coming around a bend. Again, I had the advantage of watching my wife race on this course a couple weeks ago, Andrew, and you're in the tunnel, and then you come out and you're coming around a bit of a left-hand bend, and then all of a sudden the finish pops up, and also you're on a bit of a false flat. So it is a bit of a false flat run into the finish. It says 0%, but the resistance is actually a little bit higher on that run into the finish line. The Aztec-looking structure on the side of the road. They do have now 1 lap remaining for our D categories. They're going 2 laps. The women are going 3. Haven't got to the women yet. Hopefully we will shortly. The C category are also going 3. The B category 4, and then our A category are 5 laps in total.
Absolutely. Speaking of the women, it looks like they have made their way up to the lead of the D group. So our top women riders have put 2 minutes onto the D group. Let's take a look at our very own Paulina Allen, who has now made her way along with, that looks like Shauna Novak, as well as one of the cryogen riders who's about 20 seconds back. So it's a 2-rider breakaway, Novak and Allen, for the master women and the overall women's field.
That's right. Allen is leading the Masters women as well. If it was a combined overall category, she would be leading all women in the category here. And as you had said, they've made up the 2 minutes and are now intermingled with the D men as they move on up the climb here. 3 laps will be for the women. And we had a big category, almost 30 women taking to the line here this morning. That's great to see. Thank you to the Highgate team. They put many members into the group, including Paulina Allen from Highgate Racing, as well as a team from Quebec, Dynamics Contrecoeur, racing with us as well, Andrew.
I'm just taking a look here at the list of riders that are close by, trying to find the rest of the women. And I think I have found them. It looks like Holly Clark from Toronto Hustle is leading them out. So she's sitting in the chase group now of what looks like 7 riders. So this is our main pack of Elite 1, 2, and Master women. And we've got Evelyn Gagnon, Franny Jewett, Kay Patterson, Laura Belay, and Gabby Eady. Chasing down Novak and Allen here in the jungle circuit.
Yeah, and as you can see, the speed has dropped off quite a bit here as they're on the uphill part of the loop. Again, if you look at that overhead shot up in the upper right-hand corner of the parcours of the course, you can see it constantly twists and turns and constantly undulates as well, alternating between about 1% upwards about 5%, constantly changing. It's never flat for more than a couple hundred virtual meters.
Yeah, and certainly a lot of nice graphics they've put here in the jungle circuit. It does give you that feeling of riding around in a virtual jungle per se, with all the different trees and the vegetation, as well as the as we mentioned before, Aztec and Mayan kind of ruins, giving it that sort of magical feeling as you're riding through. So it's certainly one thing that virtual racing can provide that racing in the real life quite often isn't there for most of the world, save for those pro riders who travel around the world and get to see all different types of courses. You can go here and one day you can race in the Mayan jungles, and the next day you can challenge the UCI Road Championship Circuit in Harrogate in England, ride in Central Park in London, New York, and so on and so forth. It can only expand from there, and next thing you know, we're going to be racing in space or something equally absurd, but something that the virtual world could provide that the real life can't.
Well, as I said earlier, Andrew, this is, in my view, the most scenic of the various courses in Watopia. You've mentioned some of the other more famous ones, the London Loop, the Richmond Loop, the World Championship Loop from the UCI Road World Championships in 2017 in Richmond, Virginia. That's another really popular one. But this Jungle Loop is amazing when you look at the graphics in the background, the tunnels that they go through, the wooden suspension bridges they go across, and of course the gravel road that they are racing on continually. So women's race continuing to unfold. Back to you.
So what we just saw there was the lead group of our A riders. They have managed to put a lap on our women. Unsurprising, since it is a short loop. The loop itself is only 7.9 kilometers, and our A racers did have an 8-minute head start. So it was a foregone conclusion that there would be a passing, and that has happened here already. So I took the opportunity to zoom ahead and look at our lead group of A riders. Looks like they have possibly lost a few riders. I think they might have lost 1 or 2 now, so it looks like only a group of 11. 1 rider now off the back, and as they make their way through the course, they are certainly having to dodge and weave in and out of all of the other riders who have been separated from their various groups on the course.
Well, this does call into play the strategy for groups that are caught. I mean, if this was true, racing on the road and a group was catching and passing another group, they would neutralize the group being passed, so no racing would be allowed, and they let the other group go on by. But here in Zwift racing, it's a bit more like Grand Fondo or open racing, like on the road, in that the other riders could, if they wanted to, jump in the group as they're being passed and take advantage of that little bit of drafting effect that they're getting off as the riders do go by. You see this most often with the women racing. I think it was a technical glitch. The first couple of these races, the OCA races, it ended up being a mass start race for the women, and they were mixed in with some of the Masters categories, and it really became picking the right group to ride in, for the women, which is often the strategy that they need to employ in those Grand Fondo style racings or open racing format.
Yeah, that's true. The glitchiness that happened a couple of weeks ago certainly changed the dynamic of the race. Quite a few riders who were starting in the B group, who are a bit stronger than some of their compatriots, were able to stay with the A riders and thereby get an advantage. So having this split, especially this 2-minute split, really reduces the ability for anybody to sort of tag along for the ride and get an unfair advantage. I mean, there are certain things that we can't avoid in the virtual world as it stands. I'm not saying that we need to have controls to prevent this sort of thing, but it does change the dynamic of the race for sure, and you can see how things play out a bit differently now that we have this gap, and now that we've increased it to 2 minutes instead of 1, which is what we did in the first week. It's interesting you pointed out some of the racing that we do here in Ontario in the real world, where we typically have multiple groups on the road, just like we're seeing here, and that there would be race officials who are there to help make sure that nobody would get mixed up and get an advantage on there. We haven't seen Zwift add any commissary avatars or red cars like you see in the Tour de France, but I'm not entirely sure that you need them at this point because in the real world, you have a lot of choice. Here, all you can do is deliver power. So I don't think we need to have any sort of referees in game at this point. But if the sport ever does get into the sort of championship or competitive scene here in real life, where we do something similar to esports, where you have those who are really good at Call of Duty in these games where they play in arenas, that might be the format where we have the championship held in a gymnasium or an arena somewhere, and everybody's riding together, and people might be weighing in and making sure their bikes are tuned up right, and nobody is trying to game the system by manipulating the data there.
Well, we saw that last year. I don't know if you caught it, but the UK had a Zwift or e-racing championships last year that was held in a studio in London. The BBC hosted it, and they had the 12 finalists, 12 men, 12 women, racing separately, and they had them all set up on their trainers in the studio. The commentators, sort of just like you and I, Andrew, sort of off to one side commentating on the race. And the UCI is planning later on this year to have a Zwift Racing World Championship, and a rainbow jersey will be awarded potentially for the first time to an e-racing Zwift rider in a World Championship format. So that is to come later on in the year.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, many things were canceled due to the current ongoing pandemic as a result of the coronavirus. That was actually supposed to take place, or something along those lines was supposed to take place earlier, even right now as we speak. The national federations that are under the auspices of the UCI were also going to be doing their own national championships, and Canada and USA were partnering up in the lead up to that World Championships to do a national championships as a I guess as a qualifier to go to the World Virtual Championships. There was going to be some qualifiers that would take place much like we're doing today, and then I believe the real championship was going to take place in real life, and I think Canada and the US were going to partner on that one, but of course with the pandemic all of that got put to the wayside. So I don't know how the UCI will be taking care of that for qualifications and what they're going to do for that, but certainly as we move towards the future, that certainly will be the format and the way things go.
Andrew, just want to give a thanks out to those that are following along on the live stream. We do have some comments coming in. Feel free to comment away. This is a bit of an experiment. I'll be bold and honest with you folks that are watching. I would like to thank Andrew for his technical expertise in getting all this set up. There is more to this than meets the eye, folks. There's a lot involved. It's not just like showing up at the side of a road with a microphone and commenting on the race. So, Andrew, kudos to you for the hard work you've done behind the scenes to make this happen. We have a few technical glitches to work out, but we'll fine tune it and we'll make it better for you.
Absolutely. And thanks to everyone as well from me for joining, and keep those comments coming, and keep those likes, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you get notifications every time when we go live. So I'm looking at the companion app here on my right-hand side, and it looks like our lead rider in the D group, Lucas Gertz, is now hitting the 20.7 kilometer mark, so less than 2K to go. So I'm going to go on in and find young Mr. Gertz, and we're going to watch the end of our D race here. Coming up to 21 kilometers, so we are about 1K to go now, and Mr. Gertz is 4th overall in the D group, and looks like he is not with his riders. He's still managing to hang on to our lead women, our chase group of women. So I'm going to jump ahead to see who is in the lead. If somebody, Jay McMullen, KWCA, one of our Sportif riders, is in 2nd, and it looks like our leader has already crossed the finish line. We'll have to check the results after that, but we can keep an eye here on Jay McMullen and young Mr. Cooper, one of our U17 riders from Attack Racing, as they go through the tunnel to come out to the final stretch and to launch their sprint.
Yeah, this tunnel is what they go through with about 500 meters to go, Andrew. So that's the cue that the finish is coming up shortly.
And it looks like McMullen's going to take 2nd, Cooper's going to go in 3rd, and we're going to zoom back here to Lucas Gertz, who's enjoying a free ride from our women's chase group, and looks like he'll be taking 4th in our D race and 1st overall in the U15 men. And here he goes, out of the saddle for a sprint, into the line. Lucas Gertz taking 4th overall. All right, so we had some time looking at our A racers, our women, and the finish of the D race. So let's check in with our B racers as I type in one of our riders here. Pull him up on the screen. Here we go. Graham Page is currently sitting 3rd, so I do have our lead group of B riders currently at 27.9 kilometers into the race, which puts them at lap 3, and they're about to come up to lap 4 of their race. So it looks like a lot of groups will be finishing at the same time. Lap 4 begins at 30 kilometers, so they've got 1.8 kilometers to the line, and then they will get the bell. We'll check in with our E riders and our C's as well, because they will be finishing with 1 lap less. So let me check in with Pauline Allen, who is one of our 2 leaders on the course right now, and see where she is at 23.8 kilometers. So we're still good there. There's about 6 kilometers left to go for our elite women, so we can continue watching the Bs as I check in to see where our Cs are.
Yeah, Graham Page is leading in the OCA category, the elite senior men. He's got 75 points in total. Racing with the Bs here today. And you briefly mentioned the women's race, Andrew. They are coming up to their finish fairly soon.
And I just pulled up our lead rider in the C group, and it looks like he is coming up to 26 kilometers, so a couple of K ahead of our elite women. I think we're going to have a C finish, and then the E finish, and then the Bs, and then the As. That's how I think this race is going to go. So why don't we take this opportunity to head on over to our C group, see if we can catch the final few kilometers, and then move on down to the women. All right, on screen right now, we have the leader of our C race, Batista Moreta. He's riding with a few other D riders, but it looks like they might be riders who have been lapped, and he's in the group with them. They are riding together. So good on everybody for staying in there and hanging on. It's a good job. Good to see Rob Visser. He's in the group here as well. Rob has been a fan of the channel since the beginning, so thanks for tuning in there.
Batista Moreta from the Sudbury Cycling Club doing well. And I know this is what you and I talked about earlier in the week, Andrew. It's great to see people from all over the province of Ontario coming together to race virtually. This may or may not happen in an O Cup race. Sudbury, North Bay, Thunder Bay may be too far away for people to travel. But on these virtual platforms, the whole of the province can come together in one racing venue.
And looks like Moreta is hitting the Gorge Bridge. This is something that I would certainly be a little bit nervous crossing on any style of bike. Even virtual one might be pretty easy for a wet plank to put you in between the hole there. But I'm sure the physics won't let you fall down to the depths of the gorge. Interesting fact about rider Moreta, he is one of our Master D riders, which puts him in the 65-plus category, and he is currently winning the Master 3 group. Very, very strong rider, and we wish him all the best. It looks like he has quite a big lead on the next rider. James Allison, one of the E4 riders that he was riding with earlier, is now 50 seconds back. That's 50 seconds, almost a minute on the closest competitor. So with just about 3 kilometers to go for Moreta, it looks like he has this one wrapped up.
Well, it'll be another win for Batista Moreta. He has a huge lead in the OCA Master 3 category. Andrew, he is 109 points in total. And in second is Chuck Taylor from the St. Catharines Cycling Club, sitting at 80 points. So securing probably the series win here. Batista Moreta with another win. He just needs to keep it rubber side down and to the finish line here in the C category.
Absolutely. Steve, have you ever heard of something called, I think it's Chapet's Law?
No, I have not.
Something that's been sort of talked about on various cycling, I'm just trying to pull this up here, various cycling blogs and broadcasts as well. There was a fellow by the name of Robert Chapet. He was a French cyclist and a sports journalist, and he had this premise that there was a calculation that you can make, and this is based on his experience, not anything he did through like math or whatnot. The premise holds that if there's a group of chasing riders, that it would take them 10 kilometers to make up a 1 minute gap on a lone rider. So like a sole breakaway with more than a minute for each remaining 10 kilometers was therefore likely to win the race. Some people have said that it doesn't really hold anymore because of the way that sprinter teams have developed and how fast they can really put the hammer down. But up until more recent times, they would basically be able to identify that if this rider had more than a minute and it was less than 10K to go, their victory was assured in that race.
Yeah, no, I've seen that, and it's amazing to me that in some of the races that you see over in Europe, the real races on the road, that the more sprinter-oriented teams, they've almost calculated that down to the second, and they'll make that catch in literally somewhere in the final 300 or 400 meters, and then release their sprinter for the line to get the win.
Just checking in back with Moreta. Looks like he's coming up to the 1K to go mark, still with an advantage over Allison. I don't even see him on the countdown clock here. There's a few riders in between. Looks like our A riders are making their way up towards this group right now. Leader Bruce Bird is only about 2 minutes, 15 seconds behind Moreta. I expect that he'll finish before the A group gets through. Now with 1K to go, looks like he'll not be needing to wind up the sprint, just maintain his wattage for a nice smooth sailing victory into the arch.
Yeah, no need to go berserk here. If you've got a lead like this, you can enjoy the final kilometer here. That cue that the finish will be coming up will be the journey through the tunnel with the waterfall cascading down on one side, and it's about 500 meters to go from there, and a slight uphill, as I mentioned earlier, to that Aztec-looking like finish arch.
I'll have to jump in there quickly, Steve. It looks like I was incorrect about some of the data here. I had incorrectly mentioned that Merida was riding solo with riders who, I guess, fell off the back. That's not the case. The data I was getting was wrong. Merida is riding with Paul Joachim, Rob Visser, and Lucas Rewarda, and Gregory Cuff. They are all on the same laps with about 300 meters to go. Joachim now moving in front of Merida. Merida coming back out front, holding on to first as he can see the arch in his sight. 200 meters to go, and it looks like he put a few seconds on Joachim, so Joachim won't be able to come around. It's going to be Merida in first, and then Joachim looks like Visser second, Joachim third, Cuff, and then Rawerda. I'm having to quickly pull back here. One of the features of Zwift is that you need to make sure that you're not watching a rider who's finishing, because if they opt to leave this race and move to another virtual world, we'll be taken with them. So what I've done here is I've brought it back, and we're now watching Bruce Bird, who is our current leader in the A race, wearing the bright red and white of Team Draft. For those of you who don't know, there are specialized teams that are forming to race in Zwift. And you can check that out. They're not typical teams that would race in real life, but just rather groups of riders that have come together and are riding in Zwift. And I'm not sure exactly how it works, but these teams are able to get Zwift to import their kit and jersey so they can all ride in the same kit and look at that. So there you go, Bruce Bird wearing online virtual Team Draft kit.
Well, his real team is Wheels of Bluer, and Bird is one of the riders that wants to do something here today in terms of the OCA points standings, Andrew. He is currently sitting in 6th place on points in the Elite 1-2 men category. That's the OCA category, but racing here today in the A wave. And Bruce, a very strong rider, putting out huge watts here. In this group, just saw it peaking out at over 400 watts a short while ago.
And it looks like, based on the start list, there were at least 14 riders starting in the E1-2 race as our A riders just pass the 1 lap to go marker there. So with 14 riders, there are more points available. It's a sliding scale. The more riders that start, the more points you get, up to 25 riders. So if there are 25 starting riders, the winner will get 100 points for winning, all the way down to 10 for the last rider, and then every other rider after 25 will get an 10 points as well. So with 14 riders, there are a lot of points. I don't have the scale in front of me, but I think it's certainly in the middle there, 50 or 60 points for the win. So let's see if we can find the elite women before we miss their finish. I'll have to type in into our companion app. Not the easiest system to be doing live streaming from, but it is what we have to work with. So there we go, Paulina. Oh, we might just be catching her finish right here. There we go, Paulina Allen in first place with the feather power up coming across the line, and it looks like first place for Ms. Allen. And now I'm trying to find second place. And we're lost.
So unofficially another win for Paulina Allen.
We have quite a few women here in the group that are needing to do another lap. So I'm just scanning down here to find. Here we go. Here's Holly Clark. Here's our chase pack. So it was likely Novak and Allen 1-2. And it looks like we've got Laura Belay and Franny Jewett and Karen Patterson here in our group of E riders. Gabby Eady and it's starting to get a little mixed up. We have a few other riders in there, so it's hard to find. Evelyn Gagnon, and it's going all over the place. They are switching. The wattage is changing like crazy. They are now 500 meters to go for the race. They're in the tunnels. It's anyone's game here for the bronze medal in the race and the available points for the top 10.
And once they get out of the tunnel, it's a short run to the finish from that point and a bit uphill. 1%, 2% falls flat into the actual finish line proper, Andrew.
Looks like Evelyn Gagnon's putting on the wattage. We saw her numbers get a little orange there. She's sitting third right now. She's got a bit of a gap on Gabby Eady, sitting fourth right now. Holly Clark in fifth. Karen Patterson sixth. Laura Belay seventh. Franny Jewett in eighth position with 100 meters to go. And they are aiming for the archway. Laura Belay has moved on up, and it looks like it might have been... it's still going to be Laura or Gabby Eady. They're going neck and neck. It's going to be a sprint to the line, a camera finish, and it looks like Gabby Eady is going to take third. Laura Belay fourth. Franny Jewett fifth. All right, be sure to check in on all of the results here. We're going to have them posted on the OCA website a few hours after this race. It takes us a little bit to post those results. So you're going to see anything there. Plus, also for those of you who are riding, of course, you'll get the on-screen results, which may show some of the other riders, so it may not reflect the points that you're going to get. We have two groups left on the course right now, the A's and the B's. The B's will be the ones finishing next, so let's see if we can pull up our B group and see where they are. Steve, what do you think about that finish with the women? That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was a solo breakaway with one rider behind, Paulina Allen taking the win, and then an exciting kind of field sprint between 5 or 6 riders for the final spot on the podium. Overall, of course, racing all together, the women, but they are in different categories for the purposes of the OCA racing.
Okay, it looks like I have found the front of the B group here, and they are in the sights. They're coming up to the tunnel, 37.9 kilometers total race, so they're about 200 kilometers now, and it looks like we already have one rider. Oh, there we go, M. Grzelski sitting first. We've got Mark Randall, Magnani in third, Yanni Beck's there, Grant Page, Dee Simpson, and Derek D'Angelo. They are using their power-ups. Let's see if I can find the screen here. There we go. For the folks at home, they are digging deep, and they're going for the big sprint, and it looks like Derek D'Angelo moved into the front. Graham Page. Oh, it was an exciting finish there for our B racers. So it looks like our lead group there for the Bs have come across the line. Once again, we'll have to check our results, and they'll be available on the OCA webpage. That's ontariocycling.org. A reminder to everyone who's racing, if you did not start and did not finish, please be sure to email Ontario Cycling, so events.team@ontariocycling.org, and report that you did not start or DNF to make sure that you get the maximum bonus points that are available for doing all the things that we need you to do. So let's move on to our final group here on the course. We have our A riders. I'm just trying to find the front of this group here. There we go. Mr. Bruce Bird still in the lead, and he is leading the charge right now with Connor White, Hamilton United, Greg Boileau in tow, and they've got about 7 or 8 seconds on their nearest competition, so it looks like it might be a runaway breakaway. They have just a few more kilometers left in this race, 45.8 total, so we're now 4K to go for our lead group of 3. We'll give a ride on here to Mr. Bird and Mr. Boileau and Mr. White. Didn't have much of a chance to do that to other riders, but we're able to do that now. Nice little feature you can give to riders in the virtual world to encourage them to keep on going.
Bruce Bird doing the bulk of the work here on the front of this group. Really stringing it out. Oh my goodness, the watts that Bird has been putting out on the steeper sections of the climb here, just insane, like over 500 watts momentarily, just a few seconds ago. That's massive power.
I don't know about you, Steve, but his avatar really looks like him. Like, did he pay somebody to get them to go and change the look? I mean, you know, there are quite a few options, but that's fairly uncanny how close that looks to Bruce Byrd in real life.
It does look a little bit like Bruce. I must say that. I watched Lionel Sanders, the triathlete. He's been racing in the pro triathlon races, and they've done a rendering. Now, I think some of these riders, the more professional riders like a Lionel Sanders or some of the Pro Tour riders, professional triathlete Lionel Sanders, they've been working in cooperation with Zwift, and their avatar looks almost exactly like them. They've been able to come up with little features, a mustache, sideburns, and whatnot to give an almost perfect rendering of the athlete in the virtual world of Zwift.
Well, we still have a few kilometers left here before the finish. I'm going to see if I can just quickly pop down, see what kind of a gap they have. And it looks like about 20 seconds on the main chase pack that includes Bergeron, Roops, Johnson, and Henry. So with only, where are we here? I've clicked on the wrong rider. 43. They are less than 2K to go. That sounds like a gap that may be difficult to make up. So it looks like Byrd and company are going to be able to hold on.
Well,
now I've lost them.
Just while you're doing that, Andrew, and the men have 2K to go, would it be possible to squeeze in one of the advantages of virtual racing and being in the same space as one of the riders is I can bring the women's winner in for a quick interview, if you like.
Yeah, why don't we take that after the finish of the A race?
Okay.
I might have gone too far. Here, I'm trying to find them. There's Bruce on my thing. There we go, and 44.0 kilometers to go. A lap, so we're now 1.8 kilometers to the finish.
Perfect.
And
less than 2K to go now for our A race. And again, for those watching it at home, the cue that they've got about 500 meters to go will be that journey through the dark tunnel with the waterfall plunging down to the rider's right. And from there, it's about a 1% false flat run up to the finish line. So this looks like it's going to come down to a sprint finish between several of our top riders who have clearly separated themselves from the rest of the group. Bruce Byrd doing the bulk of the work on the front of this breakaway group.
And it looks like Boileau and White tried to pull a move there, but Bruce countered, and they are all back together now at the 45-kilometer mark. 800 meters to go as they're about to enter the tunnel and come out for the final sprint. Still riding neck and neck. It looks like Byrd is moving out front, and he's out of the saddle, sprinting in the bars, moving right and left super hard, trying to hold on to this. And he's got the power-up, the aero advantage power-up. He is looking to take every advantage he can get in this final sprint. It looks like they've dropped White, so it looks like Byrd and Boileau are going to be 1-2. Can Byrd hold this sprint for the final 400 meters? We can see the edge of the tunnel right now, and it looks like Boileau has come up beside him, and he is zooming past him using the power-up maybe at the right moment. Bruce Byrd might have used it slightly too early, and it looks like it is going to be Boileau, then Byrd, and then White for the finish. An excellent sprint effort, a well-timed power-up, something that you also get as an advantage in the virtual world. I've just moved back here to our fifth place in the A group. It's Byrd's teammate, Jay Henry from the draft team. But right behind them is Bergeron, Johnson, and Roops, and Brad Parsons from Techie Kids, Lawrence Acott, Techie Kids, Anton Varabai, Toronto Hustle in this prime peloton for the group. So let's pick up one of these riders here, Bergeron, and follow them as they come in. You got a view here on the screen of Johnson, Henry, and Roops. It looks like Roops is putting the power down 14.2 watts per kilogram. and they're going to be crossing the finish line now. Can't make out quite who's going to be there, but let's move it back a little bit to Parsons, Barabai, and ACOT as they're coming in. You can see them sprinting out of the saddle, rocking those bars back and forth, trying to come across the line first. Oh, and it looks like P. Nadon just took on Parsons at the line. It's hard to tell. All right, well, that concludes most of the racing that we have today. Why don't we bring in our winner from the E-Race and do a live interview there, Steve, with our Master Women's winner of the E-Race.
Yes, momentarily we will be doing that. One of the advantages of virtual racing. Here she is coming on into view, just off of her bike. Pauline Allen winning the women's race here today overall, and another Masters win. Paulina, how did it go?
Well, that was a tough one today, Sean. That girl can sure ride. So it was a test between the two of us today. So it's funny riding on that mountain bike. Of course, you actually feel like you're on a mountain bike because you feel like you've been slowing down because of the dirt and the gravel. So it feels really fun and exciting.
Now, you had an advantage of racing on the same course 2 weeks ago in one of the Pro-Am women's races that you raced. What did you take away from that experience 2 weeks ago?
It doesn't get easier. That's it. Zwift is hard no matter which way you look at it. What I liked about today was the group kind of stayed together on the tarmac in the 6.3 kilometer lead out. So that felt really good. And then you know that as soon as any kind of incline comes, there's going to be the attacks. So it's always about being ready, and you cannot take your eyes off the screen for 1 second.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, another win for Paulina Allen. Congratulations. Yep. I got to see it live here, Andrew, in person, right in front of me. Thank you, Paulina. And back to you, Andrew, for a quick wrap up. I'd just like to, again, thank Andrew for having me on the show today to bring a little bit of extra color and commentary to it. Wonderful work behind the scenes on the technology, Andrew. There is, as I mentioned earlier, there is more to this, folks, than meets the eye. Back to you, Andrew, for a wrap up.
All right, well, thanks, Steve. It was certainly a pleasure to have you on the show today. It certainly mixed things up and made it a little bit more interesting than just having to listen to me for an hour and a half, so I appreciate that. Big thanks to everybody who came out to watch today and all of our commenters. Let's just head on over there and check it out. Rob Visser, great for joining us today. We had Jeff Lawton on the channel, Frida Lona, and someone by the name of Berkeley Nico giving big shout outs to Enrico. Austin Rankel, one of our riders, giving us some information about their DNF, unfortunately. So thanks to you, everybody who joined us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe these videos to make sure that they pop up in your screen every week as we take care of them. And on behalf of myself and Mr. Steve Fleck here, everybody at the OCA, and everybody else involved here at ARC Events, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next week here at the ARC Events live broadcast of the OCA Indoor Road Race Series.